Hey guys, and welcome to another Hobby Tips. So this week I thought we'd talk about brushes. There are a lot to choose from, and when you're starting out, or even when you're coming back to the hobby, or basically at any time, it can be often a challenge to decide on which brands to use. There's everything from the sable hair, various types of real animal hair brushes of various sorts. There's synthetic brushes. There is all kinds of and everything in between. Now they all are great and they can all be really good for you, but where do you start? And for most people, they're going to be in the hobby shop and they're going to be probably buying the one that's at the hobby shop. And if you're in a Games Workshop store, it's going to be a Games Workshop brush. Or if you're in another hobby store, it might be whatever brand that they're bringing in. And they're all fine. They're all good to start out with. Let's take a look. So I've got a whole range of brushes in front of me. These are the ones that I use these days. Coming back into hobby, I decided to not just use hobby brushes from hobby stores. I've got a few different brands, or at least a couple of brands here. And there's another little product over here, which we'll talk about in a second. But really, what you're really needing is, you don't need a lot of brushes, but you're going to need some sort of fine brush to do all your fine details, a mid-sized brush for a lot of your layer work, a large brush for big areas, and you're going to want to have some kind of dry brush, or a brush that you can wreck, basically an old brush that you can wreck, or something that's designed for that. And if you're really extravagant, you might have an extra fine brush for eyes and fine details, like a high-end brush. And I'll show you that one in a second. But to start out with, you're just going to want those couple of different sizes. Now, in terms of cost, you don't want to spend too much. You know what I mean? I don't know what it'll be like in your country, but here in Australia, anything from, I guess, $10 to $20 is sort of the mid to high range, or artist, quality brush. And you're going to be spending something like that, and that's probably preferable. I would not recommend getting $1-2 brushes unless you're going to use them for dry brushing, very loose, simple stuff. Then you might do that. The problem with those brushes generally is that the glue is really bad on those, and all the bristles will come out of them and end up on your model, and that can be really annoying. So I would steer away from those and just go to artist quality ones from your art store or your hobby store, and there'll be a combination of real hair or animal hair, usually sable, or there's some other ones. I can't remember what the other one is now. And those that are concerned with animal cruelty concerns and things like that, for most of these, as far as I know, I'm not totally sure on this, so don't quote me. I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure they come from animals that have already passed, so they're not going out to hunt these animals to acquire the hair, so they're not adding to, I guess, that problem. But if you have more concerns on that, I would suggest doing your research before you buy the brands, and work on that. But let's put that sort of more topical aside for a second, and just look at the actual brushes and what they're going to give you. For those people that are concerned, I would just suggest getting synthetic brushes, and then you don't have to worry too much about that particular part. But for everyone else that wants to use the sable brushes, or brushes that are using animal hair generally, we'll take a look and just see what's available. So the first things we've got is your small to mid-sized brushes. So I've got these ones, Neef brushes that I've got here, and they work pretty good for me. So let's take a look. And we've got a 1 here, we've got the 0, and there should be a 2, I think. This is a 2, which is now starting to fade, but they're pretty much the sizes that I would use. From a 0 to a 2 is pretty much all you're going to need, and then you might have one that's a bit bigger. I don't have one here to show, or then you might have one of these really like giant ones here for large areas, like on tanks and so on, or large dry brushing brushes for terrain and that sort of thing. But a couple of these is basically fine. Now for me, I generally just use these till they die, and then they end up as terrain brushes and that sort of thing, and then I get another set. They're cheap enough to where you can do that, but the quality is actually not too bad. I've done whole armies with one brush and they've lasted. You can see this one's starting to fade, and they've lasted. And so you're going to spend maybe about $30 or so per army that you're doing, which isn't that bad. If you're not doing whole armies, just doing single models or smaller batches, then these brushes should last a long time. But I prefer to go to something that's good quality but just slightly cheaper, and that way I can always replace them if I need to, and that stops me from having to be too overly pedantic about the cleaning processes and so on. Because really what you want to do is you want to make sure that the paint isn't left in the brush, which sounds obvious, but isn't always the case. We can see here I'm good with one brush and bad with another. You can see this one still has, if that comes into focus like that, you can see one brush has the paint still dried, and that one is clean on the left. So you do want to keep them clean, and they'll last longer. So that's probably about all you need. So $30-40 is probably going to get you enough, and maybe one extra one, so we want the dry brush. And so with dry brushes, I would definitely suggest synthetic. I really enjoy synthetic brushes for that. They're great. They're firm enough to where they hold the end of the brush well. You can do much more directional type dry brushing rather than very sort of broad kind of brushes or makeup brushes that are more wide. I prefer these sort where you can, and again I think this is a Neef as well, and these kind of ones here are really great for doing those very fine directional dry brushing on edges, and so I find these are really great, and they last for quite a while. And yeah, so I'd recommend something like that, either a mid-size like this, which is this one's a 4, or you can go for, this is actually a classic Games Workshop Citadel brush right here. Okay, this is still going. Now in terms of survivability, even the Games Workshop brushes, they're pretty good. This is almost like this would be nearly 20 years old, and I'm still using it. You can see the end there, it's still going strong, and this is synthetic. So these kind of brushes are great, and don't be afraid to go and grab some Games Workshop ones or other hobby brands that you like, because they are made quite well and they will last. So I use that one all the time still, and we even have here one of the other Games Workshop ones, and I use this one too, and this is just still going after nearly 20 years, and it's still going strong. So if you look after them, they will definitely last, even some of the ones that aren't as high priced. And so yeah, that's basically it. We've got 3 or so brush sizes there, maybe a 4th one for an extra large one, and then you've got at least one synthetic, so 5 odd brushes, and you'll have everything you need. Now if you want to go that extra step and have that fine detail one, then we've got this little baby over here. Everyone that's in the hobby knows what this is. This is the Winsor and Newton Series 7. Now they're ultra expensive. In Australia they're about $50 each roughly. In your country they might be a different price, but here they're very expensive. So I would not suggest this when you're starting out or even at mid-tier. I would only do this if you're going to be doing a lot of fine work. You're going to be pushing your skills to a higher level, and not just like an army like battle standard. If you want to go higher than that, then this brush can be useful, but you're not using this on everything. This is purely designed for very, very fine end details. You don't use this all the time, and that saves the brush and keeps it for a long time. So if we have a look, we can see the point on it. The hair on this brush, the sable brush, is very good quality, and it will last for a very long time if you look after it. So that's the kind of thing that you'll do for that sort of more high-end paint jobs that you want to try to do. Then one of these is very nice, but it's not essential. And in fact, yeah, I would just not recommend this unless you've been in the hobby for a while and you've got the spare money to lash out. Then it can be really good. But to be honest, I barely use it. I would rather just grab one of these Neef ones, one of these cheaper ones, and use that than sort of end up ruining this one. Because if you're like me and you don't always look after your brushes, then you'll end up wrecking it, and $50 is a lot. But if you are going to do that way, then you want to come into this stuff. So this is like I guess a conditioner for the hair on the brushes. It's not going to really work on the synthetic ones, but it will definitely work on the real hair ones. So it's really, really good for just cleaning. And we open it up, and it's very, very simple. All you're going to do is have the brush slightly damp, and then you're going to, so if I just dampen this, Okay, and you're just going to rub it in. Okay, after the brush is cleaned, obviously, and you're effectively just conditioning the brush, and you can do this in between your steps, or you can, and then obviously do it at the end, and you can just rub that in, twirl that in like that, and a lot of people actually leave the conditioner in. I'm pretty sure that's part of it. You get your point back on it, and that will preserve the brush and keep that point nice, and it'll keep it nice and soft, and you won't get those frayed ends, just like on real hair. You know, when you're putting your conditioner in your own hair, you know, it softens it, it restabilizes the hair follicle. It's very, very similar for the brush, and that's one extra step you can go. These range in price, you know, between $10 or so Australian. You know, they're relatively cost effective. You can get one of those, and that's cool. So this isn't a necessary item, but it's definitely something that if you're going to invest in higher end brushes, then you certainly want to pick some of that up to keep them going longer. But they're not really essential for your synthetics. So yeah, that's pretty much my 2 cents on that. I hope that's been informative for you and when you're thinking about brushes. But yeah, basically, you know, mid-tier or hobby design brushes are great, or artist level quality brushes are great for most of the purposes you're going to do between real hair and synthetic, and then maybe your high-end Winsor and Newton Series 7 and your conditioner for your really fine projects and your fine details, and you'll be right to go, and you'll never have any issues. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please subscribe and hit that notify button. That really helps me out. But otherwise, yeah, I'll catch you on the next one, guys.